Leave.
Recording started.
Hey, folks, I want to welcome you to this week's May Check Set discussion group call for tactical sovereignty. We're just kind of chatting away right here. Me and Gregory, or Greg, what do you prefer to go by? Greg?
Greg's fine.
Cool.
Greg.
All right. Greg works. All right. Well, anyway, yeah. So we were talking about the bonds, corp bonds and stuff. Yeah, there's multiple bonds that they carry. Matter of them is just being able to pull them up and show them. Now, regarding fraud, I don't necessarily see how it's fraudulent.
If they're
To
not
have a,
disclosing everything, if they're asked, I mean, the judge has a duty as a fiduciary because I believe every court case, every court, every court is a trust action. Whenever you're going to court, it's also a trust action because we're dealing with the trust account. They're dipping into our trust accounts, which is another thing that they're not telling us.
well, and like I
I
said,
know, and I can't necessarily prove that. I can't prove that. Yeah.
yeah,
But
if
if
it's
you
not
bring up the bond,
provable info, it's just speculation.
well, if I'm asking them for the QSIP numbers, who's underwriting it? Where?
I think you dropped off there for a second. As far as the QSIP number and who's underwriting it, it's each state will generally have a main company they deal with as far as pulling bonds and that kind of thing. And you can always contact them.
Huh?
And see, each state will have generally several main companies that they deal with for bonding, and so yeah, you can always contact them through there or go to.
I know the bail bonds went through some insurance company back in Florida. Which yeah, I'd like to know because I believe somewhere like banks they're not allowed to loan you any of their own money. Is that not correct?
Yeah. Well, really, what it comes down to, they can't lend out their depositors' money.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking that it was stated also. I forgot where I seen it. But yeah, they weren't allowed to lend out their money as well as it was specified or any of their depositors' money as well.
Right. Yeah, that's why, like, if you buy a house, they're going to go and they're basically taking your promissory note to the Treasury, and the money's coming from the Treasury. That's how money gets pumped into a debt-based financial system.
So it's not coming out of our sophisticated trust account with the Treasury?
I don't believe there is. Nobody has a personal Cessna K trust. I mean, everybody jumps on the Cessna K thing, but the Cessna K Act,
Social Security account.
right?
Okay, so there's this dude on YouTube, Christopher Hauser. Have you seen any of his videos?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with him.
Okay, so I don't know. He talks about it. Is he? Maybe he's incorrect. I don't know.
I've heard a lot of people talk about it and things like that, and people can talk about whatever they want to talk about. But when it comes to ponying up any evidence that that's actually the case, you know what I mean? It's like look at it from this standpoint. Remember when the housing bubble burst? Okay, and that bubble burst primarily because a lot of these mortgages that were sold on the stock market were misrepresented. You know what I mean? They might have been called a B minus mortgage package when it was actually maybe a D. You know what I mean? And it really wasn't valued at the true value that it held. And these mortgages that, when I say they got sold, they weren't done individually. They were bundled. So there might be a whole bunch of them into one bundle. Well, look at that house and think about each individual household. That might have three, four, five, six, eight people in the household. Well, yeah, it does not make any sense that there would be an individual trust for each single one of those people. That they didn't even do that when they were selling the mortgages on the bond market. They were putting those into bundles. So if anything, they're bundling the sheaves and putting the sheaves maybe on the market. But as far as individual, no. I mean, now you'll hear talk about the public trust and references to the public trust, and there you're really just looking at um, I call it the pool that everybody pees in. Um, it's it's one big package. It's not a whole bunch of little individual trusts that have been drawn up for everybody when they were born or anything like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
A lot of this all comes, like you were saying earlier, from the Sedeke trust idea, and the Sedeke idea that came from 1666, an act that was done in England, what, like almost 400 years ago. Well,
The HR, what's it? House Joint Resolution 192. That's where I'm thinking that this trust account came from.
well, I think if they were going to start any trust accounts, it would have been long before HJR 192. Um, and I don't think they would be dreaming things up a third of the way into the game, you know. But like I said, there's a lot of that stuff out there, but it's what I call stuff that's not actionable information. You know what I mean? Like people come, bitch, and you can go in court and you can bitch about the girlfriend's flag, all that kind of stuff, all you want, and it's like, yeah, so moving right along. They don't care. That stuff isn't anything
Well,
that. I mean, that's
well,
not where their authority comes from anyway, so it doesn't matter.
yeah, but they need to give the full disclosure of things if asked, and if they're not giving full disclosure, they're committing fraud, and that's one of the offense that's hey, they're we could hit them up on their bond and stuff, or I don't know, it's we could put a lien on their bond. I don't know,
It
but
depends on what the bond is based on. Is the what action the bond is based on? Is the bond based on an action
the bond
regarding
the
them giving
bond the bond
disclosure?
uh, the bond based on their oath of office. Excuse me. Sorry, I'll switch gears with that. They have an oath of office that
Right,
to defend the Constitution, and uphold the Constitution or whatever of the United States.
right. Yeah, and as far as I see,
Well, I
they're
mean, they're
doing
not
they're
doing any of
doing
that.
it. Oh,
They're
absolutely,
doing
they
they're
are.
they're, they're doing they're doing admiralty, maritime.
No, they're not. You ever been in an admiralty court? You ever seen an admiralty action take place? It's very, very different from the regular courts that you're in, that you see, the land courts or
Okay,
whatever.
okay. Then if it's not admiralty, then how about equity court? Is this
Yeah,
not an equity court?
yeah, it's a combination of equity and statutory. They've combined them both
Right. I
because
think they mixed them all up. Yeah, they
well
throw them
they
all
well
together.
they combined the two courts. So what it was, see, you have to look at where they came from. They came from England, and what was going on in England is there was essentially two law systems running simultaneously. And if a man didn't like the results that he got in one court, say for instance, like the court of the king, the statutory court, if he didn't like those results, then he would take it over to the ecclesiastical court, which was seen as the equity court, and he'd try and get a ruling from there. And so then you'd have these two systems now that are butting against each other, and that created a problem. And so in the USA over here, they decided that they were just going to combine both. That way, they weren't going to have that problem. And a court of equity isn't always the best court you want to be in anyway. In fact, that can
Oh,
be a
yeah.
lot more dangerous.
Well, I'd rather be in a common law court, myself. I don't know that they're doing with the
Well, this is
common
a
law.
common law. This is a common law nation, and the common law here would be the treaties that have been written and the laws, is the statutes that they're using. That's what's common to the people here, and that's what they're using.
Hmm.
So their statutory courts are really a common law court. It is a common law country.
Yeah, common law. It's supposed to be a common law. Hmm. So I should be doing common law here. Do put it in a counterclaim or something, or
Um, well, putting in counterclaims and things like that, yeah, that's a form of common law. I mean,
yeah. Well, but that would put you in the plaintiff position, I believe, and the basically running the show supposedly.
well, if you're in the plaintiff position, then you're the one bringing the charges forward,
Right.
and it's kind of, I don't know, it's a form of that. It's an answer to their claim.
But right. But will that be I don't know, be allowed? Or can they stop that?
Oh, you,
Putting it.
you can always put in a counterclaim, sure. Yeah.
Uh, and does it have to be approved by what by the judge or what?
Well, the claim is going to be heard.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're going to have hearings for it, for the claim, and then from there, it's, their discretion whether to uphold your claim or deny it.
Uh,
Just like the claim of the state against somebody can be upheld or denied, and their claim, uh, initially it goes to the attorney general for the state, and the state looks at it and decides whether or not to move forward. And so since it's going into court,
well,
then evidently that claim has been okayed, it's been approved to be heard.
okay. So if this is a common law court, uh, everything supposedly to do with the government, hey, it has to do with religion, with God, right? So we don't get our rights from the government. We don't get our rights from the Bill of Rights, a piece of paper that we get our rights from God,
Well,
right?
those are the rights that the state observes and that the court observes.
Okay, well, that's man's law, right?
All right, and
In
you're
in
in.
the hierarchy of things. Uh, Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, you're fine.
God's law, Creator's law, natural law, whatever you want to call it. Uh, and hey, I recognize that as my law. You know, it's like, I don't need to stand under man's law if you know I'm standing under God's law. If I write a notice of understanding, maybe.
Well, okay. Well, if you're going to use any of if
Any of
you're
their laws, like UCC 1-308 or some
yeah, I
shit
mean,
like
if
that.
well, yeah, if you're going to use their stuff, then you're no longer, you know, putting yourself underneath God's law. Now you're putting yourself underneath man's law.
Oh well, I'm I don't consent to be there. I'm here under duress, threats, uh, coercion, you know, to take care of this matter because otherwise they're gonna come get me regardless, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, right.
Absolutely.
So
I think everybody that is in court is probably there under duress. I don't think anybody's there because they want to be there.
right. Well, well, but it's supposed to be voluntary to contract with these commercial proceedings because
Right,
they are all commercial proceedings,
right.
and I don't want to contract with them.
Well,
That's why I say, yeah, I'm not under the jurisdiction. I have I believe that I had done, uh, at least, you know, the minimum, not not pleading, not accepting counsel. I told him that I was here, special appearance, uh, sui juris, uh, and that's basically all that I was able to get in because and they're trying to give me orders. I'm not accepting their orders. Like, uh,
Well, what jurisdiction were you questioning?
hey, there is no. If this is common law, I haven't committed a crime. If this is common law, I have not harmed anybody. These are all was it victimless crimes?
Well, that's what the court case is for. The court case is to determine whether or not a crime has been committed.
Well, according to them, they go by the statutes. Of course they're going to say crime's been committed.
Right. But I mean, those things aren't questions of jurisdiction. I mean, I was just wondering what jurisdiction it was that was being questioned there.
Well, hey, the plaintiff, yeah, as far as what I knew of personal jurisdiction, I had to have done something to that person for them to have personal jurisdiction over me. I have to have committed, violated their natural rights, basically, in some way.
Right. Well,
This has been
personal jurisdiction isn't you harming another person. Personal jurisdiction or in personam jurisdiction is the court's jurisdiction over your person, whether or not they have jurisdiction over your person. That's
well,
what in personam
okay.
jurisdiction is.
They have jurisdiction over the all caps name, that trust account, that corporation. They don't have jurisdiction over the living man.
Well, it's not a corporation. I mean,
Huh?
it's not a
Everything in
corporation.
everything in all capital letters is a corporation that they created
No, no,
upon your
not
birth.
true. Not true. A corporation, if you look up a corporation is recognized when its articles of incorporation have been filed. Have you filed articles of incorporation for that corporation?
No, I'm not even understand. I'm sorry. Article. What are articles of incorporation?
Articles of
I've learned.
incorporation are what establish a corporation. A corporation also has officers. It has a secretary, has a president, a vice president, other officers. It holds regular meetings. It
Okay.
has bylaws that have been written into their corporate charter. Do you have a corporate charter?
No, no, no. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So the all caps name is not a corporation.
well, what is it then? It's like an organization, or
Yeah, it's an
I've
organization. Yeah.
heard
Or
different things applied to it. Yeah.
it's an
Go ahead.
organization or I would call it maybe even a limited partnership.
Right. That was the next thing going to come out of my mouth. The partnership.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I would like I would be doing my best to separate myself from the partnership. That is not me. That you know whatever it is that all caps name is, that's created with the birth certificate. Uh, that's what you have jurisdiction over. You don't have jurisdiction over the living man.
Right. Yep, they have
Right.
jurisdiction over what they created, and they created that legal entity, that legal
And
person, or as
they
Linda Roosh on from UCC 9 says, an organization is what she claims that it is.
right.
So,
And so they want they want to trick us into accepting the liability for that organization that they created. They want to make us think that we are one and the same, which we are not.
right. And,
Right.
but they essentially see you as one and the same. I mean, it's the same thing as if, say, John Deere Tractor Supply was going to sue somebody. Well, John Deere Tractor Supply is an artificial entity, right? Well, the artificial entity can't do anything. So what does it do? It has officers, and one of those officers is what represents it in court, and that's why um, those big corporations are observed as being a legal person with the rights, duties, and responsibilities of the legal person, to be able to sue and be sued and meet any legal requirements.
So, would the UCC one create a separation?
No, no, the separation, it's really simple. Like like we were talking about before we started recording up, ask if you have a bank account. He said, yeah, and you live in a home there in town, you've worked for one of the businesses that's registered to the state. Okay, doing all that and doing that through the legal name of that organization they created. And so they would have to be crazy to think that you're not representing that organization or that legal persona that the state created at birth.
Uh,
And that's how they gain personal jurisdiction. Either way, what I would really recommend for you, and I mean, I don't recommend to people to go hire an attorney or anything like that, but I would recommend at least speaking to somebody who has dealt with cases similar to what you're looking at. You know what I mean? And that
yeah.
way you can get your mind wrapped around the direction that you need to move in. You know what I mean? Because, people can go in and argue all sorts of other arguments, secondary arguments, which I've seen quite a bit, where,
Uh-huh.
somebody is charged for, say, crime A, but they're in there arguing about B, C, D, E, and F, and they never even touched the original charge that they're looking at, they're faced
I'm
with.
not even trying to
You know,
touch the charges. I'm not trying to touch charges. I mean, I mean that's their statutes. These are victimless crimes. In my mind, that's not law. That's color of law. Uh, if this is common law court, the law is, hey, there has to be a victim for there to be a crime. You have
yeah.
to have hurt somebody, you know, physically, financially, in whatever way. There are these are victimless crimes.
I listened to a guy that I think he served like 19 years or something like that in federal penitentiary, and he actually, in his interview, this particular matter came up when he talked about victimless crimes,
Uh-huh.
and he was asking him, that because there was no real human being victim, regarding any of his crimes.
Right.
And they told him, they said, listen, you want us to bring forward a victim? We'll find one.
Oh, oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, hey, I, I'd love for them to fucking come up with a victim because they become in fraud for sure. But
Right. And they're to the point, even with crimes, that it doesn't matter whether there's an actual victim, flesh and blood person that has been harmed, that they'll even go as far as they look at potential victims. You know what I mean? And so and you could look at that in the case of, say, for instance, like speeding. You know what I mean? Well, you didn't harm anybody or anything like that. No, but they look at the potential. They look at the what
well,
ifs. They look at the behavior is really what it comes
but
down to.
I think they're acting outside of you know, they're 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 going. The laws are supposed laws supposed to be specific. Like, hey, their actions now, they're skirting around things if they're doing that. Where's it written?
Well,
Does it, hey, potential victims? We can include that now. I don't.
they've
I
been
mean,
including
I'm
it
not.
for a
And
long
I'm not
time.
trying to argue with you.
Yeah, they've
Huh?
been including it though for a long time. And really, what the problem that you face is that you're looking at two potential juries in any situation. You've got the jury of the court, and then you've got the jury of the public, and the public jury is actually much harsher, much harsher. And so, with these situations where we're questioning whether or not crimes are really crimes or not, the problem really is that in the United States of America, we've got 365 million other people that do agree with the judicial system that some of those things are crimes, and so you need to convince another 365 million other people first. It's like in the matter, for instance, of a felon carrying a firearm. Today the majority of all other Americans are going to agree that they shouldn't carry a firearm. Unfortunately, most of them don't stop and think about the cases of being a felon. Is somebody a felon because of paperwork they did, or is somebody a felon because they're committing nefarious crimes, against humanity? Most people, when they hear felon, are going to think the latter. They're going to think that somebody was committing, nefarious crimes against the rest of mankind. So
Hey, hey, Brian. I lost you for about 2 minutes. My thing was I didn't hear a word you said. I'm sorry, brother.
that's okay.
The thing was spinning. I just got you back right now.
Yeah, I noticed your connection's kind of gone in and out a couple times, but
Yeah. So
yeah. But what I was saying, that the issue really is, whether we believe in some of these laws or statutes or not. You've got 365 million other Americans out there that do believe in it.
well, I don't know that they necessarily believe in it, but they're touting to
Eh,
accepting it, I guess.
Yeah, they've accepted. They haven't come forward and complained about it. Um, they haven't come forward to discredit it. So until they
Okay,
do that,
so
they've agreed with it.
here's one thing. Um, you're familiar with Malika Dulce?
Yes,
Okay, so I was just watching a video that's over in the that friends in law group.
right.
It's tagged up there at the beginning, basically. Um, and she was talking about uh, by the time we get into court, uh, they're uh, something about it's in review. They've already the agency has already discussed this whole thing beforehand at the administrative level or something like that. There's a step that they're either not doing or hey, we're not told about it. I don't necessarily know, but she was talking about make a hearing, schedule a hearing with the administrative office of California or the office of administration or something like that. Like I say, I just look it up, and it is a real thing in Sacramento. Uh, man, uh, and beyond that, I'm a little hazy because I didn't.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
they have decided ahead of time before proceedings even ever start. The majority of the time, they've already decided the direction that the case is going to go in. I mean, I've witnessed that firsthand, listening
mhm.
to defense counsel and the prosecution talk with each other ahead of time and come to agreements as to what was going to end up happening with the case. I mean, that commonly happens, and in fact, you see evidence of that when the judge starts right out. First thing he says to the prosecution is, "Have you and the defense come to an agreement?" Right? You always ask that first, because if they've come to an agreement, then he doesn't have a whole lot of room to tread on what they've agreed to. And if they've come to an agreement, the judge will ask, "Okay, what have you decided?" And prosecution will respond regarding what they've come to, what conclusion they've come to. The judge will ask the defense if they agree, and boom, the case is pretty much done right there.
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Um, I was just wondering if you could touch on like the copyrighting the name, or
Those
um, getting an EIN. How you go about that?
All right.
cop,
Copyright. Let me hit
copyright is an
copyright
art piece.
first.
Huh? What
Let
did
me
you say?
hit. I was saying, let me hit copyright first there. Then, copyrights are a protection that started. I believe the first Copyright Act was started like in Switzerland, if I remember correctly. But it was done as a protection for people over the things that they create, such as their writings or musical works or art or paintings, things like that, things they've published. Copyright is a protection for them for those things. And that's what can be copyrighted are things that you create. Now, the legal name itself cannot be copywritten. It doesn't fall under any of those categories. However, you could copyright the autograph as a work of art. That's a possibility there. Now, as far as like an EIN goes, um, you can just do a simple search for EIN and what they're for and look up the instructions for filing an EIN. And you're going to find in there that an EIN is for a company with employees. I don't know too many individual people who have employees under them if they don't have a business. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
I'm trying to get at. Actually, I should have
Can I interject?
phrased phrased the question a little bit better. But it's getting the EIN for your doing business as name. So I heard that you had to get it from Philadelphia.
there's a lot of different theories there. In EIN, all an EIN is, it's a social security number for a business.
Yeah.
It
What,
doesn't offer anybody any other
what protection?
protection or liability than the social security number does.
Can I interject real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was listening to another recording. This guy who beat his charges, and he brought up your name and he thanked you uh, for the idea. He said he copyrighted his name or his autograph uh, spelled in different ways. You know, uh, Gregory Dash Allen, semicolon Nandino, uh, the all caps version. Uh, the name was switched around, Nandino, comma Gregory. Uh, uh, he said that he copyrighted all his autographs.
All right.
And I forgot. I don't know what his name is, but
Yeah, yeah, and you can do that. You can do that with your DBA as well. DBA,
how do you?
the full freaking name and has to be done as unincorporated. And then in the attachments of that, you can also include that name in all of its various formats, first, middle, last, and then last, first, middle, then first initial, middle initial, last, all the variations you can tie up underneath that as well.
So you get a bank account under a DBA without the Social Security number. You just use your EIN number that you obtained.
Right, right. You can use an EIN for a bank account underneath the DBA. You can use either EIN or the SSN.
If you use an SSN, you still want it to. Well, you don't want to use the SSN, isn't that correct? Because you don't want to get the you get a benefit, with interest rates and all that kind of thing.
Well, either way, if you're drawing interest, you're going to be getting a benefit, whether you're using an EIN or a social security number. You're going to be getting a benefit by, those few shekels or pennies that they give you every year, which are worthless.
Yeah, you don't want.
But any account can be set up as a non-interest bearing account.
Okay.
I've got a non-interest bearing account with a DBA at Wells Fargo, and I've got another one at a credit union.
How do you go about copyrighting the autograph? Where do you go? For,
Well, I'll tell you what, really, and you mentioned common law earlier. In common law, anything you create is technically copywritten the second that you create it. You know, if you can establish first use of something or first creation of something, then that right there is your copyright. But I mean, there's different places you can go to make sure that that is really memorialized or put in print. There's different sites that you can go and file copyrights at.
Just look up copyright and it should pop up.
Right. That way it's going to be on the record somewhere. You know what I mean? A third
Right.
party is going to have it dated and evidence of it on the record.
Okay. And what does that do for you? They can't use your signature or your autograph for anything.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because I mean, signatures will be used and duplicated a lot. I mean, I brought up earlier like the bubble burst over the housing situation, and there was information here that came forward from people that were working at some of the mortgage companies that did nothing but sit there and sign somebody's name to a stack of papers all day long. You know what I mean? That's one form of it there. If you talk to any, say, debt repair agency, for instance, every one of them will recommend to you that whenever you're communicating with a claimed debt collector, that anything that you do with them in writing, that you never include a signature on it. They will all tell you that. I mean, signatures are probably one of the biggest things that get ripped off all the time. And so I think if anybody was in the practice of that and they came across a signature or autograph that had a copyright symbol on it, they would probably think more than twice about whether or not they were going to copy that one.
Well, I was under the impression that the courts basically what they want is your signature, your autograph, uh, which gives them the charge to leverage your. Well, what I'm thinking is your trust account to get your credit to create the bonds or to create the loan that they're handing you and telling you that you're in debt for. I
Hey,
don't.
Brian, you mentioned the whole life insurance policies. You mentioned that there were like four large companies that you would get your whole life insurance policy with. Do you know which ones those are?
Oh, off the top of my head, no. There's like there are ones that have been around for 100, 120 years. I think like Colonial Life is one of them. American is one of them. But yeah, there's Penn. I think Penn Life might be another one. Yeah. You just look up some of the oldest insurance companies in the U.S. and that's where you're going to find them at. And they're the ones that are going to be the most stable, which is really what you're looking for.
Did you set up your private member association for just your household?
Right. Yeah.
You've already done that?
Yeah. You can do an individual private association. You can do family associations. I really recommend doing family associations. Those are really strong. Those are good. And they're basically a very simple form of a trust, would probably be a good way of putting it. The difference is that the trustees, for instance, in a private association, will be its members and officers. Which is a good position to have people in as well. I mean, if you've got um, proprietary, or information that belongs to the family, for instance, then it's good to have the members holding some form of trust position, because that's also a position of liability to protect those assets. I know Jess is here with us. I don't know if she had something she wanted to bring up this evening or not. She's kind of bounced in and out. Miss Jessica. Either way.
You were talking about not cashing your checks through your bank account, and you just go to the bank that they were written on.
Right.
If you're you just do that, even though you've already like rescinded your signatures and all that with the IRS. That's still something you would recommend.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the the relationship between the IRS and your cashing of a check. I'm really not quite sure what the relationship would be there, but or even what the relationship would be with them as far as like rescission of signatures. Rescission of signatures is going to be case specific. Can't really do a blanket rescission on that, but you can do specific rescissions, such as rescinding voters registration, for instance. That would be one.
Right. Yeah, I did that already.
So I was under the impression that the court doesn't have jurisdiction over you unless you consent to contract with the court. Is that not true?
Yeah, but if you've been contracting with other juridic entities all along that are under the court's jurisdiction, then that's pretty much one and the same. It's like, unfortunately, this doesn't get used too much anymore, but it used to be you harmed one person in the family, you've harmed the whole family, and you're gonna have the whole family come after you. You know what I mean? It's that way of thinking.
Well, I mean, I haven't harmed anybody though. Hmm.
Well, and okay, take the no harm situation, for instance. Okay,
Yeah.
I think most all of us have grown up in that kind of an atmosphere, depending on how strict your family was or your family wasn't. But if dad had a rule in the house, for instance, your curfew was 10 o'clock at night, and you came home at 10:30, uh, dad's generally going to punish you, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, did you cause harm or injury to anybody by coming home at 10:30 instead of 10? No, and of course you didn't. So you can't really scream no injury there. But I mean that we've grown up in that kind of a system your whole life.
Is it our citizenship? Is that what ties us to you know our status as a little c federal citizen? Uh, if we expatriated from that, or we're able to change our status to say a big C state national citizen, would that do any good?
Well, the states have all been kind of co-opted by the federal and become. I look at them as franchises of the federal government. They're all kind of federal in their own right as well now as well. That they just kind of morphed into that.
Yeah,
The
they're like
same way,
franchise.
the same way that, say, for instance, Walgreens drugs morphed into just being Walgreens. I said something to a Walgreens manager here a few months ago. I was at the store and they had this big picture of the old Walgreens up, and it was like from 1916 or something crazy like that. And they had a sign next to it saying, we've been part of your family for 110 years or something like that, right? And I looked at it and said that's kind of a lie. And the guy was like, well, why? Why's that? Why is that a lie? And I said, because originally it was Walgreen Drugs. It morphed, it changed its name, it changed its company name just to Walgreens. Well, Walgreen Drugs no longer exists. Which,
Hmm.
side note, most people don't know, I think in the past year or two, Walgreens was bought out by China. Go figure.
Goddamn.
Hey, what do you think of the Patrick Devine files? Have you looked into any of that?
Yeah, I looked at that quite a bit for a few years, and I'd still, go back and revisit some of it now and then. And I used to listen to his regular meetings that he had with kind of his inner core. And Well, it would seem to me to happen a lot, and I think he was a pretty brilliant guy. But I think what seemed to happen from what I observed quite a bit was that they were going from, okay, well, we're working hard on this project. This is what we're going to accomplish. And then a week later, it'd be like, okay, we're changing gears. We need to go and start doing this and this and this also. And it was kind of like always on an endless rabbit trail. And I never really saw much results from anything. So,
Yeah, it was very difficult to follow those videos.
yeah.
Just what you said, yeah.
And a lot of these people, if something doesn't really work the way they had claimed or what they had said, and people were trying to push them on the issue, and maybe this was wrong or that was wrong. A lot of times, a lot of these guys would break out in anger mode, yelling and screaming and maybe even name calling, to try and shut down discussion on that issue so they could start moving in a different direction. It's what the psychology of it was all kind of interesting.
I was trying to
Yeah.
get. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was trying to get my live birth certificate, but I'm in Montana. I came from Montana as well, and so of course they're saying that they can't do it. So don't I just have to write the Secretary of State to get that? I mean, obviously they have it somewhere.
They have
Right.
online. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I live on Florida, and I was originally from Michigan, and I spent a lot of hours on the phone with like Vital Stats, talking to those people. And this is interesting. I called Vital Stats for Michigan up, and through the course of the conversation, found that I was just speaking to some retired lady that lived down in Texas. I thought, okay, that's kind of weird. So I guess Vital Stats they've broken up the states into like 5 or 6 different groups, and Lord knows where the office for your state may even be located at. But when I spoke to Michigan, and who I contacted really to receive it was the State Department of Health, and at the end of about a 15-minute long conversation, and after the lady had gotten all of my info for ordering it, she asked, she said, oh, actually, she made a statement. She said, all right, your birth certificate should arrive in 10 to 14 days. And I kind of called her out. I said, oh, hold on just a minute. I said, not once during this conversation have I ever mentioned the birth certificate. I've only mentioned the certificate of live birth.
Right.
And she said, well, what do you need it for? Which that right there told me, yeah, it does exist, right? What do you need it for? And I immediately remembered everything is commerce, right? So what you're going to be needing it for is for doing commerce in another nation, in another country.
So you need to talk to the Secretary of State.
I don't know. I never talked to the Secretary of State regarding receiving that.
Was it? I went through this place called Vital Check.
Yeah, that's a business. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to be getting the certificate of live birth, hopefully, through them. And I specifically, was like, hey, is this, I tried to make sure that they knew the difference between birth certificate and the COLB. And I think they did ask me, what are you going to be using it for? And I think I said wanted to be contacting the Secretary of State and stuff like that. Not using it for your passport. That would be the birth certificate.
Your declaration for certificate of life. Who all did you send that
to? That went out to a handful of particular entities, of course. The Secretary of State for the state I was born on, Secretary of State for the state where I currently live, to the federal level, which would be Department of State, Trying to think of who else in the U.S. has seen it. The chief administrative judge for the district where I'm at now and the district where I was born, Michigan, um, they received it, and also just as kind of in jest to the Vatican. Um, and one place I didn't go to, but it probably should have, and I may do it in the future. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the results so far, but would be to Department of Agriculture, because the Department of Agriculture, when you really start digging into what they do and digging into their files, they look more like the Department of Human Resources for U.S. Inc.
I love that story you were talking about a few weeks ago when you said you saw like that lunar wave in real life.
Yeah.
What? What did he say? The lunar wave?
Right.
Now that's got to be crazy. I mean, I've had a couple experiences where you're like, once the experience is over, you're like, did I actually see that, or was it just in my mind?
So,
It's crazy.
the same lunar wave that Crow 777 filmed.
Right. Yeah. It looks exactly the same thing, only when I saw it, it was like in real life, just kind of passing through my field of vision, going across a field that was in front of me and over the road and then over the other field on the other side of the road. And I was like, wow, it kind of looks like a section of film where maybe two films were spliced together. I think would probably be the best way to describe it.
Uh, did it come in twos?
No,
Like one and then another? Because
no, it was just one that I saw.
that's how he describes every the lunar wave. It always comes in twos. So, so you saw that in the moon, or just right here in your field of vision right here?
Right here in real life, my field of vision just passing, like I said, through a
Wow.
field, and then over the road in front of me, and then over the next field on the other side of the road.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Actually, it was funny. You bring that up. I had somebody bring that up to me today, and it's somebody that I've seen around the area where I live. And today I went to a store and I parked at the store, and I looked across the street at this empty gas station, and I saw somebody standing out there by a food cart, and it was this guy, and something just compelled me to go over and talk to him, and we ended up having a couple hour long conversation. But yeah, I went over there and we started chatting, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "I want to ask you something." And there was a couple other people standing right there, so we walked a ways away and continued the conversation. But he was like, "There's something about you," and he says, "I don't know what it is, but something's been telling me for a while that I need to talk to you." And he was like, and he started getting into the matrix that we live in and this and that. He's like, "I have nobody to talk to about this,
Huh.
but something that keeps telling me that you're somebody that I can talk to."
Join the club.
And I thought,
Right.
yeah, that's cool, because it's true. There are very, very few people that we know in real life that you can bring up any of these things with that won't look at you like, Medusa
Right.
or something,
It's frequency. It's the frequency you're giving off. Maybe I don't know.
I've had a few experiences in my life where it just seems like, this is just all me that's here, and everything else is just my illusion of what's going on.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's like it feels like you're on a movie set
yeah.
and you're part of it. You see everybody, you can smell everything, you can feel everything, but to everybody else, you're invisible.
Huh.
And how certain things just happen. The timings of things just happen. It's almost like somebody's watching you. It's
Oh,
almost
Kind of like
absolutely.
part of an
kind of like in
experiment.
the movies.
Well, you feel like you're like it's not only is this probably like a grand experiment that we're living in, but it's all about just you, and they're just watching you. Because just things happen, and the timing of things. It's like, I don't know. It's very strange.
Well,
Put it in
maybe that's your unconscious or your intuition your gut, you know, alerting you
We could be
through
manifesting all these things
to
ourselves, sure.
what's that?
Well, we could be
You could,
manifesting, the stuff ourselves, but yeah.
true, but they do have technology above our awareness. Like who knows what they can do, really? I mean, they're way
Well,
more advanced
or,
than we
have
could
you ever
ever
seen
know.
some of these cathedrals that, the Tartaria cathedrals and stuff? They're actually built and they're part of the mountain. The mountain is actually built into the building as well.
I think those structures
I
were
don't know if you've ever looked into the John Levi's channel, but it seems like the whole realm that we're living in has been created from below ground up. The whole thing's a creation.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you look at a lot of the Greco-Roman architecture in the U.S., and even look at a lot of the old cathedrals here in America and in North America, you look at these and it's like, this was built when?
Yeah.
150 by. How did they do it 150 years ago when they were doing everything with, horse and cart, and we're not even building anything close to being as elaborate as this is today?
Well,
well, the
just look
dumbing down has been going on for a long time.
just look at
Those
the
like those structures are I believe built to gather energy.
yeah, right, yeah. But
Uh,
even if you just look at like the star forts and stuff, when they're built on swamplands and areas like that, and just the leveling of the ground is impossible for those people back then. You know what I mean? Just I've done ditches and stuff like that just to, run a pipe. How do you make these perfectly streets? Just that feat right there is impossible for back in those days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like a town near me. You can go on Google and look it up, or DuckDuckGo, or whatever your favorite search me engine is, because it searches you while you search it. But you go and look up this town down here on Florida called Cape Coral. And here, this last week, actually, there was a girl I was talking to, and I knew that she lived in Cape Coral. And I asked her in our conversation, I said, how old do you think Cape Coral is? And she's all like, oh my gosh. She's like, I don't know. She's like, how old is Florida? She's like, gosh, it's got to be what, at least 100, 120 years old. And I told her, no. I says, Cape Coral was actually built in the early 1960s. And she was like, what? I said, yeah. I said, in the 60s. So that means it's only about 60 years old. And the thing about Cape Coral, like I said, go to, maps imaging and take a look at Cape Coral, because it is nothing but canals, full of canals. Sometimes every half block there's another canal, or at least every block there'll be a canal, running somewhere. So it's tons of all these canals. I look up how many miles of canals there are here on that town, but there's got to be a lot of them. But the interesting thing was, I did a search a while ago because I was thinking about that and how much work it would have taken to dredged out all these canals and reinforce the banks, everything that would need to be done to create a place like that. And I'll tell you what, I searched for quite a while online, and I could not find any photographs of them digging out the canals.
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, there's barely any photographs of any of that construction, the Erie Canal, all that kind of stuff. And the cement that was used in those days, was you got that Portland cement that they used to build all that stuff, and then they supposedly forgot how to make it.
Yeah, right.
And then the Roman cement, supposedly from all that really old stuff, they just learned how that was made, like in 2014 or something. They say.
Well, and that's what I contest, that the Egyptian pyramids are. They're nothing but poured cement molds. That's how some of those structures are so perfect, how they fit together so well and everything like that. It's like, of course they do. It was a mold that was built there, and they poured sections at a time. And if you can go and look up any kind of archaeology digs and tests that have been done on the pyramids, because they don't allow anybody to test any of those quote unquote stones that the pyramids are constructed out of. It's like, oh gee,
Oh,
why won't you let anybody test those stones? Is it because they're not really stone?
so you don't think that the pyramids are like uh, built to collect energy? Do you think it's like a totally fake thing?
No, I think that there very well could be an energy idea behind it. Um, I think it's been pretty well proven they definitely weren't just a tomb, for a king or something like that. I really think that there is some energy technology behind that. That's something that I use. I've got a video. I think I got a video up that I did on it. Is pyramid power, and that especially a pyramid built at that 5:6 ratio that those pyramids are at, that's the best shape for harnessing this energy that is in the ether, such as like what Tesla used to talk about, what he was investigating, or what Wilhelm Reich was doing,
Yeah,
you know,
organ energy. Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
harness, yeah, or they call it orgone or vril,
yeah,
energy from the ether.
yeah.
And
It's real.
I use, like I was saying, a pyramid that I made, and to make it out of something a little heavier than even construction paper. And it was a gentleman in Czechoslovakia. Actually, I shouldn't even use that word gentleman. It doesn't mean what people think it does. But a guy in Czechoslovakia drew up the patent on this. And one of the things that he used it for, and people use it for, it's what I use it for, you can keep your razor underneath that. And depending on how heavy your beard is, that those disposable razors might last you 2 or 3 days, maybe 5 days, something like that. Well, in using that pyramid, I can use one of those disposable razors for 2 months.
What the fuck? Right on. Well, okay, so they have there's different structures like Russian pyramids. They're called Russian pyramids. I
Right.
think they're made out of tubing and stuff. Uh, they definitely have an effect on the energy in the surrounding area. Uh,
There's different dimensions. We got Violet here with us. Violet had her hand up. What's going on,
huh,
Violet? I just opened your mic, Violet.
I know Violet.
Yeah, be interesting to hear what she's got to bring up. Well, she's got her hand up,
Come
but
on, girl.
I don't hear her. I've got her unmuted. Oh, she,
She's in there. She has maybe some bad transmission. Maybe
well, she is,
she'll get in here.
she's muted and unmuted herself a couple times here, but
She's probably playing with it.
yeah, maybe she's got a mic that's not working. But anyway,
She's using it on her phone, I think.
yeah.
I know you've had a few people on here talking about health and stuff, Brian, but there's this man down in South America that talks about eating sea salt. Sea salt, the gray sea salt, not the pink stuff. It has to be sea salt. And
Right.
when you quit eating the diuretics, in which prevent your cells from hydrating, and use this sea salt, it just heals everything. And so I've been doing this for 10 months now, and all of my arthritis disappeared. My libido came back like a 20-year-old again, and I feel amazing. And this guy only has like 600 followers, but his website is called healyourself.com, and his YouTube video is under Darko, Darko. Let me get the exact name. Velkek, Vlcek. And this guy's all over it. I mean, you got everybody talking about antioxidants and all this stuff, but it's really just sea salt and cutting the diuretics out of your diet. and allowing the cells to hydrate.
That makes sense. I'm surprised I haven't heard of it.
Well, yeah, this guy's totally shadow banned by YouTube. But I've also just been eating animal products for the last 2 years, and so I mean I've tried everything. I've been a vegan, a vegetarian. I've done $10,000 worth of top shelf vitamins. I've done it all, And the day that I did this sea salt thing, I felt like I was breathing better. That could have just be a placebo effect, but here it's been 10 months. I even actually had a cold. I was catching a cold at the beginning of this month, and I was spit up a little bit of green phlegm, so I knew it was a cold, and it never took. I was able to breathe through my nose for the entire time, and it was a cold, but I fought it off. The only reason I caught it in the first place is because I ate some pork too raw, and my gut was closed for about 3 days, so I lowered my immune system. I don't think I even would have caught that cold if it hadn't been for that.
Hey,
check this guy out, man. It's gonna surprise you.
So Brian.
Yeah.
So have you ever tried, say fighting a case in the private instead of in the public?
Yeah.
Writing the conditional acceptance with an affidavit or whatever.
No. No, I didn't use a conditional acceptance. I mean, a lot of times with a conditional acceptance, I mean, to me, things are pretty case specific. You know what I mean? So it would have to be a particular kind of situation that maybe a conditional acceptance would be used in, because many of these conditions you wouldn't want to accept any of their crap in. You know what I mean?
Right.
But no, myself, what I did is, as soon as I knew that there were going to be charges brought up, I just went straight into the county prosecutor's office, and I sat down and talked to the county prosecutor, and I said, "Here's what happened. This is what I'm going to stand on. This is what I'm going to do, and this is how far I'm willing to push it." And the county prosecutor told me, "You know what? Don't even worry about coming in."
Sure.
Which, I mean, I'm still not that stupid. I still went in and sat in the back of the gallery just to make sure that the name that I used didn't get called. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, you just take that from the book of Matthew. It says, "Go quickly to your brother, lest you get dragged into court."
What do you think about getting your property taxes back for all the years you paid?
Some of that info out there from like Orlando Steve or whatever. I too don't totally agree with that. I think that is a possibility. In fact, I think he's proven that it's even more than a possibility, because really what's been done, and it's the favorite practice of attorneys, is to reclassify things. You know what I mean? And so to go and take what you would think, residential property should mean, and they reclassify it to mean something else. You know what I mean? Because technically they can really only tax land that's being used for profit, businesses, that kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. I think that is definitely something that can be done. What it does come down to is the amount of work involved and how much time you have. Steve has, and I think Alphonse might have the files on it, but the statutes and the codes really that are pertinent for Florida regarding that, a lot of that legwork's been done, but people on other states would have to dig in to their resources and find the information they have that's pertinent to their case.
Don't you just have to get your title back from the title company?
No, there's a little more to it. I mean, because you're going to have to go to the assessor and bring up, your points with the assessor, because it's the assessor who's going to remove the property from the rolls.
Well, what are you guys speaking on the getting out of paying property taxes, or like getting all the taxes that you paid into it
Yeah,
already?
yeah.
How does that work?
Like I said, you can find that info. I mean, it's pretty lengthy. You can find that
Oh,
info from Orlando Steve. And like I said, I think that maybe Alphonse might have a file on that as well.
Alphonse. Okay. These are people out here on Facebook or
Yeah,
somewhere else. Okay.
yeah, or YouTube, you'll find him there. Even within our group, within Tactical Sovereignty, you can go up to the search bar at the top and just put his name up there. And because I shared his YouTube channel to the group also.
Yeah, his website is He Has Sent Me to You.
Yes, there you go.
Hey, you familiar with Rod Class?
Yep.
What do you think of his stuff?
Not a direction I've really moved in, and the reason why is because just taking an overview at all the various people in time that have been involved with. I use the term patriot movement for lack of something better to use. It's probably what most people could identify with. But you look at a lot of these people, and you look at the ones that have gotten any problems or any pushback from the state or from the federal level. And it always seems to be anybody who's ever really messed with the coin of the realm. You know what I mean? And so my suggestion is to stay as far away from messing with the coin of the realm as possible.
The coin of the realm? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. How about Rob Ryder?
Rob Ryder's good. I mean, and you can sit in and listen to, him researching different things. I don't think he has a lot of material really prepared, when he say does a video, for
Uh-huh.
instance. But I've used a couple of the techniques that he's shown over the years on different things
Uh-huh.
that I came in agreement with. But like I said, a lot of it is still a lot of guesswork and researching that he's doing. And it's good to see somebody out there doing it. One of the best things I think is that anybody watching him can maybe learn how to do their own research online
Right.
and find information,
And Gene Keating?
Yeah, Gene Keating is definitely an animal of another color for sure, right?
Yeah. Uh, what
Hey,
does that what does that translate to?
he's a pretty brilliant guy, and if you don't think so, just ask him. He'll tell you.
Right. Oh,
You
man.
use just care of for your address, or what do you do for that?
My address. What I recommend using is using a separate agent for service of process, and it, incidentally, where I'm at, I don't even have a mailbox. All right. Fortunately, I don't have any utility bills in my name, anything like that there. And people can accomplish that just through how they contract. You know what I mean? How you contract, say with a landlord, for instance, or if you're going to build your own place, how you even establish that. You know what I mean? Um, and a lot details on a lot of this kind of stuff I can't really or shouldn't really say on a recording or something that might go up to YouTube or something like that. But what I can say, and put this in the back of your mind, all right, and dwell on it a little bit, but you have to comprehend, you have to realize everybody is so scared, for instance, when they go like to the Department of Motor Vehicles to do something, or to go to the Secretary of State office to do something, or whatever the case may be. That people get nervous, but they shouldn't be. You got to realize that those people working behind the counter, They're just pulling a 9 to 5 job like any other ordinary Joe out there. They don't care about your crap. They just want to do their job and go home, because, while you're dealing with them, what they've got in the back of their mind is they're trying to think of what they're going to make for dinner and trying to remember that they've still got laundry in the wash machine that needs to get transferred to the dryer. You know what I mean? You got to keep that in mind. And so, in saying that, I say that to say this is that there are, for instance, maybe certain papers or certain documents that they need to see in order to fulfill what needs to be done at their office. And so just show them the paperwork that they need to see. And I'll leave it at that. Let your imagination wander. Yeah, I'll tell you a story. And it was something I kind of forgotten about. Here a few weeks ago, I was talking to an ex-girlfriend, and ex-girlfriend was telling me about some people that she knew that she had been telling them stories about when her and I had been together and the struggles that you have in life. And for instance, the struggle of moving 1,600 miles away to a place where you don't have an established job, you don't know anybody or anything like that. And in order to rent a place, they want to see some evidence of where you work, that you've been in the area for a while, right? And in the same respect, to go get a job, they might want to make sure that, you're not just somebody floating through town, that you're established in the area, that you live here, you have a quote unquote address or residence, you know what I mean? And so she said that her friends said to her, "Well, what the heck did you guys do?" And she said, "Well, I'll tell you what Brian did. Brian went and got a typewriter." Like I said, you just show them the documents they need to see. They really don't care. They just are required to see them.
They got a checklist.
Yeah, they've got a checklist. They've got boxes they got to check off. Just like, I was talking to somebody today. They're talking about, the clerk of courts not filing certain paperwork for people. And I said, sure. And the reason most often why they aren't filing them is because that type of paperwork, they don't have a box to put it in. You know what I mean? Um, I guess maybe it could go into miscellaneous, but really they want to have somewhere specific that this is supposed to go. Like a health surrogate document goes to a certain place. A document regarding land deeds goes to a certain place. A document for power of attorney that goes to a certain place. They know what to do with that. That's why, like Robert Michael recommends, if you can't get your document filed into the court, just attach it to something else. Attach it to a power of attorney. They'll take a power of attorney.
Uh, uh, to talk a little bit off the subject, a little bit. Are you familiar with the attorney role? Uh, I think it's supposed to be the state Supreme Court clerk is supposed to have the attorney role, which has every attorney that's listed, I guess, in the state. But how they sign their signatures, authorized signature.
Yeah, yeah, I would think they would have all that on file. Yeah.
Uh, but are you familiar? Is it the the clerk of the Supreme Court that has it for the state? Or
No, I would say it would be the Secretary of State that would have that. The
the
Secretary of
secretary?
State, if you look under what their duties are, they're the holder of all certificates, bonds, etc., all things having to deal with business.
Okay, so attorneys, they aren't licensed.
There.
They are.
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
thinking that in California that they are not licensed.
No, they're licensed. They're licensed to practice in court. That's one of the things you hear a lot of people bring up, and I think one of the reasons why it's brought up is because when most people think of a license, most people only in their lifetime have one license, and that's maybe a driver's license. You know what I mean? And so in their mind's eye, that's what a license
Uh-huh.
is. But licenses take many shapes and forms. Say, for instance, if you want to get a license for a fully automatic weapon, okay, and the license for a fully automatic weapon is actually called a stamp. You have to have that stamp, all right, and that is your license. Um,
Look, that brings up another thing. Uh, does so anything in the in the federal code, uh, does that supersede state code? Through the article, I think three supremacy clause. I think it's Article 3 or 6, one of the two.
um, yeah, yeah, I would say no, and
No.
it's really going to pertain to the court, that particular court, and you're getting into jurisdiction again, like maybe subject matter jurisdiction if the court has authority over something specific. If you, one of the things I like to point to, most people would know about is you look at the different cities, for instance, that claim that they were going to be sanctuary cities, and in being a sanctuary city meant that they were going to go against a federal rule or a federal law. Okay. And the only thing that was said to them was the Fed said, well, fine, then you're not going to get any more grant money from us, which I'd say fine too. Yeah, every freaking state and every city should do that. If everybody refused the freaking money from the feds, then that would make life a whole lot simpler.
The reason why I asked is because in the federal code, they have a definition for firearm, which does not include basically their definition does not include a pistol. As well, it wouldn't include most rifles today.
Right. Rod Class has gone over that. That dealt a lot with a charge he had regarding a firearm in his vehicle in Washington, D.C.
Well,
And
I remember him saying that he took it on the plane. The or the people that uh, that, that policed the planes. I can't remember what the they found a gun in his suitcase or something like that. So
right.
yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that people should pay attention to. And I tell people, even simple things such as, say, a traffic citation, you have to realize that, gosh, you look at all of the codes and everything like that, even under, say, traffic for a state. And there's way more of them than any normal human being could
Ever
remember
remember?
or
Yeah.
memorize. You know what I mean? And so most police officers will have one or two little favorites. Okay. One police officer, his little favorite thing might be speeding. So he knows that code inside and out. You know what I mean? Um, you might run into an officer whose favorite little tick is tinted windows. So he knows, the citation on window tinting. But a lot of times these officers might end up writing you a ticket for something that is outside of the scope of their little favorite ticks or whatever. And so they don't quite remember that code exactly and don't take the time to look it up. And so they may write down an incorrect code there. So I recommend to people, you get a citation, first thing you do is you pull up that code that was listed there, see if that has anything at all to do with the reason for the ticket. Same situation really happened. Carl Lentz talks about it, where he was being charged with the manufacture of moonshine. And judges will try and throw you a bone. People need to not be quite as argumentative with all of them and listen for the bones they try and throw you. Because this judicial administrator told Carl Lentz, have you read the statute on that? You know, And he said no. And the judge said, okay, he says, I recommend reading the statute, and we're going to continue this court date for like next week or whatever it was.
So there was a
And
remedy in the statute.
right. And so, yeah, Carl went and read it, and I might not remember this exactly, but in the statute or the public law that it was drawn out of, it mentioned that what it pertained to was the creation of alcohol with an unnatural heat source.
Oh,
And Carl said, "Oh, wait a minute, an unnatural heat source? What, like using propane or something?" He said, "I was using wood. I was using a natural heat source."
uh,
And so he went back to court and he argued on the statute and won the case.
uh. Well, the reason I ask is because this directly pertains to me. Like the federal code, the definition of firearm does not include a pistol, and that's what I had in the trunk of my car, or that car,
Right.
for ex-felon with a firearm. Is there any way that I could, utilize that in the federal code where,
Yeah.
hey, where it supersedes the state definition?
Well, does it supersede the state definition? Have you looked up the state's definition on California
Yeah,
for that?
the state's definition is nothing like it. Yeah, it's nothing like the federal one. Um, uh, but I remember it was either Article 3 or Article 6. It's a supremacy clause where I'd have to go back and watch the video again to get the specific, but I believe
Well,
it's Article 3 supremacy clause. The guy was saying, well, that supersedes, your state codes or whatever,
well, one of the things you're going to want to look at as well is the charge regarding the pistol a state crime, or are they charging you under a federal crime?
Well,
Because if they're charging you under a federal crime, it would definitely Code of Federal Regulations would definitely play into that.
well, this is definitely state. This is Superior Court in California, so it's not federal. So that's why I'm asking.
Oh, I'll give it time. With any luck, they'll move your case up to federal.
Okay, so I got a friend from Facebook, Chief Foltz. He kept his court in the fucking arraignment phase. I think it's still in the arraignment phase because he's not willing to give a plea, and he's able to fence them off with whatever tricks that they're trying to do to get him to move forward.
Right.
And that's where I was basing the, hey, I'm not going to let these guys out of arraignment.
Right. Well, it's all how long you want to stretch things out for. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'd like to find some remedy here, but and I know that there is some remedy. Just picking the right one that's going to work.
I think the best remedy that any of us can use is to try and make good choices.
Yeah, I've been beat up over that. So yeah, yeah.
Well, anyway, we've been here for a while. Anybody else have anything they wanted to bring up or mention? Feel free. This would be a time to do it. I can unmute the board, providing hopefully there's not a lot of background noise. And believe me, we can hear every little thing in the background.
Thanks for the time, Brian.
Hey, you got it, brother. Everybody is unmuted. If anybody has anything they want to bring up, feel free to do so. If you muted yourself out, well, I just unmuted you. Sorry. But
thanks for your time, Brian.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what, these little talk show calls of originally were designed for, was so group members can get to know each other, meet each other, bring up different issues, talk about different things, especially because there's so much stuff that's been put out there that is really kind of hogwash. I posted a video for a playlist that I just made although I think I had done one 4 or 5 years ago, but it's regarding Chinzi versus Pagliaro, and it was done by Richard Cornfolt, I believe is his name. But anyway, I recommend people don't just listen to the first video regarding Chinzi versus Pagliaro, but listen to all three videos, because he gets into the aspect of all of the different little remedies and stuff that have been thrown out there, and how using a lot of that stuff can get you in even more trouble, dig yourself in even deeper, when it's actually best to go right to the source, like we were talking about, going to the statute or the public law that it was codified from, and seeing really what's being talked about, and if the right information from the officers is correct or not, because very often it's not correct. And you know and that's not a matter of fraud or a crime or anything like that. A lot of times it's just human error or just human nature in itself, you know what I mean? And you can benefit from those things. It's no different than going through a store and seeing a $800 rug that's been put into the $50 bin. No different. Same exact thing. But anyway, guys, I want to thank everybody for being here.
Thanks, bro.
Absolutely. Every Sunday night, 9 p.m. And I could tell everybody every week, what it really comes down to is learning who you really are, where you're really from, and where you're really at. Because we've been deceived on a lot of those things. And maximum of law is, if someone is going to be deceived, let him. It's not their responsibility to correct you and to set you straight. If you're going to believe the wrong information, then that's on you. That's your responsibility. It's our job to find the correct information. And like I just said a minute ago, make good choices. That's really what it comes down to. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.